This PowerPoint presentation, as well as all PowerPoint presentations by Dr. McLean, should not be used or reproduced without written permission. In the following PowerPoint slides, I will give you basic principles about word studies. Words are arbitrary signs. A word is the combination of letters that is meaningful by itself in a language. Interpreters must deliberately pursue what the original words of a passage meant at the time they were written in the context in which they occurred. This again is the emphasis on from the original author to the original recipients. Single words by themselves seldom convey a complete or definitive thought. Word order means different things in different languages, but just for the sake of the lesson, word order can be very different and it can be very important. You can take the same words in English and by rearranging them have several different meanings. The man hit the ball hard. The ball hit the man hard. The man hit the hard ball. The hard man hit the ball. The hard ball hit the man. All the same words, but look at all the different meanings. In Greek and in Hebrew, word order can be very important, and we need to watch this also in our translations. Words have a range of meanings. Think about the word bank and how many different ways. There is the bank where you keep your money. You can bank a shot. There's the bank of a river. There are so many usages of words. You can bank on it. Every word has a range of meanings. In other words, if you were to write a circle, draw a circle, and then put in the very center a word, from that word would come various meanings. Word meanings also overlap. There are synonyms, words that are similar. There are antonyms, words that are the opposite. These are things that we have to look at. We have to look at what does the word mean in that particular context. Word meanings change over time. 100 years ago, charity was related to love. Today, charity is related to giving. Words have connotative, that's positive meanings, and denotative, that is, the denotative meanings are negative. Like you can say, he's a bad boy, or that's a bad band, in the sense of really cool or something like that. So words, the same word can be connotative, positive, or denotative, negative. There are general principles about the interpretation of words. First of all, an obscure or ambiguous text should never be interpreted in such a way as to make it contradict a plain text or a plain understanding. Often a complex, ingenious, or devious interpretation should not be given precedence or preference over a simple and more natural explanation. A word does not usually mean what it originally meant, nor is its meaning often determined by its component parts. Words change meaning over time. So when we talk about a word does not mean what it originally meant, in other words, the idea of the root of the word, you have to see how the word has developed over time. The same word may have different meanings in its various occurrences in the Bible. Just because a word has one meaning, for instance, in 1 Corinthians, doesn't mean it's going to have the same meaning in Galatians or Ephesians or Philippians. We need to understand each word in its own context And we need to understand that the context is what is most important to understanding the word. Sixth, each word or phrase normally has only one meaning, which is indicated by its usage in the sentence and or one of several contexts or paragraphs. In other words, you don't want to take every single nuance of a word and just dump it into that one passage. You want to understand what part of that word is being emphasized. A word should not be given all its shades of meaning in one text also. Remember, words have connotative positive meanings, denotative negative meanings. And so we have to sort through what is inside the circle of the core meaning of the word and all the variants as to which one fits best within the context. This is particularly challenging for figures of speech. So what are the steps, some steps for performing a word study? Well, first of all, as you read through a book in its entirety, you want to select the words that require detailed analysis. In other words, words that are key to the understanding or words that might be foreign or misunderstood by your audience. You want to examine the usage of the word in the book. So you want to begin with if the word occurs in the first chapter, second chapter, third chapter. You don't want to start at the end of the story with a word because it may have been given a meaning or a technical meaning earlier in the book. You need to determine the range of meaning for the word from a resource dictionary, and I'll give you some suggestions at the end of this PowerPoint. Note the usage by the same writer in a parallel passage in other books. You want to keep words within the authorship of each writer. Again, you don't want to mix up Paul and John, or John and Peter, or Matthew and Mark, so on and so forth. Just as we have our own vocabulary and we use words in particular ways, so the New Testament writers sometimes used words in particular ways. Note the usage by the same writer in other books. If it's not clear in Galatians, well, maybe it's better in Romans. You want to stay within the writer's own compositions, or corpus as we would say, and understand the word. Note the usage in a parallel passage in other words or in other books. Sometimes it is helpful to compare Matthew, Mark, and Luke because they may explain the meaning of a word to their audience where the other gospel writers might not. Note the usage by other writers in the Bible. If you can't figure out the meaning of this word in the author's vocabulary, then it is all right to go to look and see what other authors have to say. You also want to note how the word is used by writers outside the Bible. Like the word forgiveness, forgiveness has different concrete meanings. It can mean to cancel a debt. It can mean to set someone free. It can mean to complete a transaction and then to cancel it in a gracious way. So we want to note how the word is used by writers outside the Bible, because that sometimes gives us, if I could say, the concrete understanding of the slang that might be behind it. We also need to discover the meaning of similar words, synonyms or opposite words, antonyms. We sometimes can't really nail down the meaning of this word, but if there are antonyms, which are the opposites, that helps us. Or synonyms, similar words to what are being said. And if there are similar words, then again, it can help explain the word. Select the meaning that best fits the context. Words take on meaning in a context. And so you don't, as I said earlier, want to bring every meaning and every nuance of a word into every passage. But what you want to do is to select the one that best fits the context. Now, there are many word study resources. An older one, but one that is quite good, is the Vine Expository Words. What's nice about this is it gives the various meanings of the word, but it will sometimes give you also the Greek or the Hebrew words, various Greek or Hebrew words that are all translated into the same English word. And it is an English-based word study. There's a new one coming out called the Complete Word Study of the Old Testament. There are Old and New Testament lexicons. There is another one coming out, the Complete Word Study, 4 volumes. Any good exegetical commentary, dictionary, or encyclopedia will help you. Often the detailed exegetical commentaries, a writer who knows Greek, Hebrew, or Aramaic who is explaining the word, can provide the most clear and succinct statement that is usable for us. Now, there is one assignment for this PowerPoint. You want to study the meaning of tongues in Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. Tongues has often been understood as divine babble or the muttering of a heavenly language. When you look at Acts 2, you want to ask yourself the question, what were the tongues of Acts 2? Were they divine babble? Were they a heavenly language? Or were they actually an earthly language? Does the word tongues in Acts 2, 1 through 15 always have the same meaning? What languages were identified as tongues? Are there any synonyms used in Acts 2 to help us know the meaning of the word? In other words, synonyms, words like tongues, but not tongues, not the actual word. Take your time, reflect, meditate, and gather all of the evidence for each time the word tongues appears, for it has different meanings within this same chapter. Write a 1/2 page paper on the various meanings of tongues in Acts. This PowerPoint presentation, as well as all PowerPoint presentations by Dr. McLean, should not be used or reproduced without written permission.